This is a big deal. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They actually just published this report basically talking about how Apple has a tendency to steal people's ideas, technology, and work with them until they no longer need them and then create the technology themselves. This is a pretty common practice within the tech industry, I would say. Um, Generally speaking, I've heard of almost every major tech company that I work with being accused of this kind of behavior. The real difference is that Apple is gigantic, and that they have a track record of doing this. Um, and they in this article, you can kind of check it out on Wall Street Journal. But basically, they talk about how they talked to 2 dozen different people about this kind of behavior and how it destroyed their businesses, and um, it's brutal. On top of that, they also talk about like some investors like Vinod Khosla, who's one of the biggest VCs in the industry, and he said that he doesn't bring his new startups to Apple anymore. Instead, he tries to stay away from Apple because Apple won't actually help that company. They're just gonna, be able to claim that Apple's a customer, or maybe they can't even do that because that happens a lot. You can't even claim some of the biggest tech companies in the world are your customers, and then they'll steal the IP and they'll do it themselves and do it cheaper because that's ultimately what Apple's all about is finding technology, making it happen, and making it happen cheaply at scale on a global scale. But one of the best examples of that is actually a company called Imagination Technologies who makes graphics IP, which was previously in the all Apple smartphones. It was called Imagination Technologies, and they basically helped Apple build their GPU. And Apple went out and built their own GPU because they don't need Imagination because they don't want to have to pay Imagination. And it basically killed Imagination because Apple was their biggest customer. And as Imagination was struggling to stay alive, they ended up filing a lawsuit against Apple because Apple's magical GPU ended up actually being mostly their IP with a few modifications, which is what Apple was already doing. So they eventually settled. Imagination Technologies got the license from Apple, and both companies buried the hatchet as if it never happened. And this kind of stuff happens all the time, but usually those companies don't win those lawsuits and they disappear. So this is kind of an article talking about a guy who had something similar happen with his sensor in the Apple Watch, and I highly recommend you read it.